Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where Kyle Curtin takes you on an extraordinary journey alongside renowned multifamily real estate sponsors and syndication experts from every corner of the United States. We teach you how to harness the power of passive real estate investing and witness the transformation of your wealth building strategy. Let's create wealth together.
What's up, my friends? This is Kyle from the Creating Wealth Podcast. Happy freaking Wednesday. Today, I am going to share a mistake that I made in the past couple of years with my multi in Leominster that you guys can hopefully avoid when you listen to this. So this is going to be a short episode, but definitely one that's kind of big to keep in mind. So in my building, right, it's kind of like an L shape. On one side of the L, on like the short side of the L, if you will, you have like unit 1 on the bottom, you have unit 2 on the top, and then there's a finished attic on top of that that's actually a part of unit 3. Unit 3 is on like the long part of the L, and it's like 2 floors, and then there's a staircase that goes up to that finished attic above the original part of the house. So the reason that I say that is the details are important, because as soon as you walk into unit 3, there's, on the left side, you have the kitchen, and then you have a bathroom back there as well. You take a right when you first walk in, there's a living room, and then a staircase that goes up to the bedrooms. Many of you guys know where this is headed because you've heard me tell this story 1.5 million times, but for those of you who haven't, here we are. So that staircase that goes up there goes right into the bedrooms. Okay. And that's totally normal, right? But the thing is you have to walk through the bedrooms to get to the next one. And like the doorways aren't aligned. Like one of them's on like the left side of the room. One of them, there's like an awkward, like weird sized middle bedroom thing. And like the doorway's in the middle. And then like the room in the back is kind of weird, but it's like a solid size. But anyway, so the lesson here, my friends, is obviously I knew this going in, that this part of the house was a little quirky. At some point, going to have to fix it, add a hallway in there, get the, bedrooms squared away, add, the hallway, change the doorways. So everything is uniform and makes sense. You actually have privacy when you go into each of those rooms and that kind of thing. And I knew that, so I lived in that unit for a while because that one was vacant when I first bought the building. So that was my FHA owner occupancy. The vast majority of it was spent living in unit 3, but the thing that was interesting is when I was ready to get that one rented out, I spent a pretty good chunk of change, kind of getting the unit prettied up. I got a backsplash. I got an exhaust fan in the bathroom. I got all new LVP flooring upstairs, including the finished attic, which was 16 by 40, freaking stupid, crazy, amount of square footage, and, I paid, a pretty penny for it. And, but the thing was, I spent all this money making it look pretty. I painted all over the place. Painted all the cabinets again, which was another disaster. I'm actually going to take a note, to make another mini podcast episode about that story. And a big lesson that I took from that. But basically, excuse me, still getting over that cold. But so basically, I spent all this money making the unit all pretty and everything. And upstairs was still how it was for originally, you have to walk through the bedrooms and such. So, I took all the pictures and stuff for the unit. Once it was ready to listed it. A ton of people reached out, through Facebook Marketplace, through Zillow Rental Manager, screened a whole bunch of people. There was a good amount of parties that came by. And when I realized what I realized, I wish I had realized it a lot earlier, because the people that were like screened, were pretty solid, in terms of credit and no eviction history and that type of thing. And when I had them in there, everybody fell in love with the first floor because, everything was all like nicely done over. Everything was freshly painted. The floors were clean, like the whole thing, it was pretty, but where the dynamic shifted was when they went up the stairs and saw the bedrooms, because the majority of these folks were families and like, different members of the family absolutely need the privacy. A little hard to have the privacy when you have to walk through your sibling's bedroom to get to the next, to go downstairs and that kind of thing. So the vast majority of people ended up leaving, after they saw her upstairs and didn't put in, the application, like, they just weren't interested anymore, because it didn't really work, and like I wasn't charging like a crazy amount or anything for the unit either, it was a tiny bit below market, but I listed it as a 3-1, but what I had to do after, kind of having that type of event happen multiple times with, multiple different potential tenants is I had to end up listing it as a very big 2-bedroom unit because the unit's friggin' huge, especially with the upstairs, but dominantly with that half finished attic. Like it's friggin' crazy how big that thing is. Like I said, it's like 16 by 40, so eventually, to my luck, I guess, if you will, I ended up finding a tenant that, didn't really mind, that the setup was a little weird. And, they were the ones who ended up renting it. But the big lesson to take away here, guys, is basically make sure that the property itself and the units themselves function before they look pretty. Because I did it the other way around, as a very, very new landlord. I was like, oh, like they won't mind. Like it's been that way forever. Like who cares? It's a little weird, but whatever. So, I'm going to spend all this money and make the unit look nice. Which didn't really work. And I'm glad I learned the lesson when I did. And as early as I did, because now that's absolutely something that I take into account with pretty much everything, So basically what the dynamic was, I spent all that money making the unit look pretty. I was, paying a contractor and that type of thing. And, I asked for a quote after I had a couple tenants walk through and tell me like, hey man, like, this isn't for me. I got a quote to, have the walls fixed and stuff like that for a pretty big amount of money. Which I couldn't afford, because I just spent all this capital up front, like, making the unit look pretty. So things ended up luckily working out okay. But the thing here, guys, is take the lesson from me is that especially if there is that particular layout in a unit or in multiple units in a property, it's not common, but I have seen it in a couple other places as well, where like certain rooms go into other bedrooms and like it's weird. Like once in a while you do come across it. And somebody was telling me a while back, I think there's a name for it. Like, I don't know if it's like rail car, kind of like, like train, like cars, like one to the next one or something like that. There's some sort of name for it, it doesn't really matter, but yeah, so things ended up working out for me. And I know next time around, like if and when this tenant that's in there now moves out, I mean, now it's been a year, I just like renewed her lease and everything. And, she's pretty happy, you know what I mean? So whatever. But I know that, I'll probably end up having to use home equity line money to like really do a nice project on that. And get the walls switched around and that kind of thing, like spruce up a couple other things in the unit, in regards to functionality. And, then, I should be able to make out a lot better, especially with that attic upstairs. So yeah, but that's pretty much my lesson for today, guys, is basically make sure your units function before you make them look pretty. Because if they don't function and they look really pretty, it's probably not going to work out in your favor. Take it from me, who learned the hard way. And still, things kind of worked out luckily at the, you know what I mean? And like, the people in there are still great tenants. Like they still met my criteria and all that stuff, like, and whatever, but it's definitely a bit of a discounted unit because it's a little different, So yeah, make sure it functions before you make it look pretty. Alrighty, my friends. I'd love to talk to you guys about this, like hear your experiences. If you could, please leave a rating and a review for the show down below. It helps me a ton, share these helpful messages for multifamily with as many people as I can find. Push the algorithm on, Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube and stuff a lot more. And yeah, I will talk to you guys very soon. Have a wonderful hump day. Alrighty. Goodbye.
That's a wrap for today's episode. We want to thank you for being a valued listener of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Make sure to visit www.creatingwealth.com to connect with us. Dive into our ever-expanding library of informative blogs. Get access to our private investor portal and explore a wide range of additional valuable resources. Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue to create wealth together.